Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker. A time of plagues, punishments and pottage. We're diving into what life was really like during the Middle Ages. Forget the castles and chivalry Hollywood sold you. The truth? You probably wouldn't last a single day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1325. It's still dark outside, the air is freezing, your joints already ache. And the good news? You're not dead yet. The bad news? Neither are the fleas, and they've apparently chosen your neck as their new neighbourhood. You open your eyes to the smell of mouldy straw, goat, and something sour that might be your brother's feet, or possibly an ex-turnip that rolled under the bed last week. Except, you don't actually have a bed. You're sleeping on what was once a burlap sack stuffed with straw that's now more fungal than fibrous. The stuffing is flat, damp and lumpy like a sad casserole. There's no pillow, unless you count your own arm, and no blanket. Just a tattered wool sheet that's stiff with age, sweat and mystery spots. It's heavy enough to double as winter armour, but smells like a sheep's regret. You sit up slowly. Every joint in your body creaks like a door that hasn't been oiled since the last crusade. You're 22 years old, but in medieval terms that's practically retirement age. You've already outlived your childhood best friend, died from a splinter, one sibling, plague, and the village cobbler, poisoned by bad cheese. You're not lucky, you're just stubborn. Your body hurts in places you didn't know had places. Your spine cracks as you stretch. Your knees feel like they're grinding glass. You blink into the gloom and notice the ceiling leaking again. A fat droplet falls from the thatched roof and lands directly on your nose. Perfect. You're sharing this one-room hut with your parents, 3 siblings, 2 chickens, and someone named Cousin Tom, who may or may not actually be related to you. He's been sleeping in the corner for 6 months and nobody's had the heart to ask questions. There are no walls, no doors, and certainly no privacy. Someone's foot is in your face. You think it's your sister's. You hope it's your sister's. You glance around. The walls are wooden planks, warped, cracked, and stuffed with rags to keep out the wind. It doesn't work. The floor is dirt, sometimes mud, occasionally something worse. Last month it froze solid. This month it's soggy again. There's a corner near the entrance where your dad keeps the night bucket. You don't talk about the night bucket. You just avoid eye contact with it. The smell in the room is legendary. A complex bouquet of stale ale, unwashed feet, sheep fur, and the faint sweetness of decay. There's no such thing as scented candles. If you lit one, it would probably hiss and give up. The first step out of bed is always a gamble. Your foot lands in something cold and damp, possibly chicken-related, possibly not. You don't investigate. You just hiss through your teeth, wipe it on the back of your calf, and try to pretend it's water. It isn't. You know it isn't. But denial is cheaper than soap. You reach for your clothes, which are hanging near the fire. Not to dry, just to keep them slightly less cold than ice. You have one outfit, a wool tunic that used to be green or brown or maybe grey. Now it's just vaguely earth-toned and perpetually damp. It's stiff in some places and fraying in others. It smells like old cheese and regret. Underwear, optional, most days you go without. If you're lucky, you have a linen under tunic, but it's currently being worn by your younger brother, who won last night's game of who had the least fleas. You wrap your tunic around your body, tie it with a bit of rope, and begin the daily ritual of scratching. The lice are already awake. You can feel them shifting like an audience waiting for the show to begin. You pick at a scab near your elbow and try not to think about it. Your scalp itches too, but you've already worn out one spoon from using it as a scratching stick, and the second one is now in use as the communal soup ladle. You stumble toward the door, which is just a threadbare cloth tacked over the doorway. No hinges, no handle, just a flap that flaps. Outside, the morning fog is thick and wet. It smells like wet dog and burned cabbage. You take a deep breath and immediately regret it. The air tastes like chimney smoke and pig. Your yard is really a muddy clearing with 2 chickens, 1 goat, and a wooden pole where your mother hangs laundry when she remembers. Today it holds exactly 1 sock and half a tunic. Both are frozen solid. You need to relieve yourself, but there's no toilet. Of course there isn't. You're not a noble. You're not even a well-fed peasant. You're the kind of villager whose bathroom is a tilted wooden bucket behind the hut, or if you're feeling fancy, a spot by the compost pile. But you can't wait, so you shuffle to the bucket. It's half full, you don't want to know what with. The morning ritual begins. You breathe through your mouth, do your business, and try not to make eye contact with the goat, who seems unusually judgmental this morning. Afterward, you dump the bucket into the street naturally. That's where everyone dumps everything. Human waste, animal waste, mystery sludge from the bottom of the old pottage pots. It's tradition. You're supposed to yell, "Gardez-lou," an old French warning that means look out below. But most people don't bother. At this point, the only thing flowing through your village faster than gossip is waste. The streets themselves are a patchwork of mud, puddles, rotting straw, and things best left undescribed. It hasn't rained in 2 days, but the muck is ankle deep. You step over what might have once been a shoe and try to keep your balance on the slippery stone path that curves past the well. Back inside, your mother is lighting the hearth. The smoke drifts upward, hits the thatch ceiling, and then decides to stay, curling around your head like a particularly aggressive ghost. She ladles a scoop of yesterday's breakfast into a wooden bowl. It's a slop of pottage, barley, turnips, maybe a bean, and definitely a hare. You eat it anyway, slowly, carefully, avoiding the part that looks like it's moving. It's warm at least. Your only hot thing today, unless you count the goat who occasionally lies on your feet. You sip your beer, yes, beer, at 6 a.m, because the water will probably kill you. Weak ale is safer, is what everyone drinks, even children. Yours is flat, lukewarm, and smells like damp bread, but you drink it gratefully. Outside, the sun is beginning to rise, casting a muddy orange light over the village. Your day hasn't even started, but you already feel tired. You're itchy, hungry, sore, and vaguely offended by everything around you. You step into the street, tug your tunic tighter, and prepare to work until sunset. And this was just the morning routine. So you've managed to crawl out of your medieval haystack of horrors. Congrats. You're now vertical, barely clothed and already itchy. But before you even think about food, your bladder has other priorities. Nature is not calling politely, it's yelling. Unfortunately, what we think of as going to the bathroom doesn't really exist yet. Toilets? Nope. Plumbing? Not a chance. Even the term restroom would be considered high comedy here, because what you're about to do is neither restful nor private. Let's talk options. If you're a peasant, and let's be honest, you are, your bathroom is likely a wooden bucket behind your house. It's already half full because Uncle Willem had a rough night after eating something he insists was a mushroom. It wasn't. It was a slug. Again. The smell? It's biblical. A mix of fermented turnip, human shame, and a vague suggestion of sulphur. You hold your breath, do what needs doing, and then comes the real kicker. You dump it into the street. Yep. Just lift the bucket, walk to the window, shout "Gardez-lou," which is Old French for watch out below, and hurl the contents into the public thoroughfare. If you're thinking, surely that's not hygienic? Correct. It's the opposite of hygienic. Streets in medieval towns are essentially open sewers. A charming, bubbling river of human waste, animal droppings, spoiled food, and substances so mysterious, even the local rats walk around them. The only upside is that your sense of smell is already so deadened you barely notice anymore. And here's the fun part. There are no shoes. You probably go barefoot, or if you're lucky, you own a pair of leather scraps loosely stitched together into something that vaguely resembles footwear. So every step through the street becomes a squelching gamble. That puddle could be water, Or it could be last night's chamber pot surprise. Either way, your foot's already in it. If you live in a town with public latrines, well done. You've reached the pinnacle of medieval plumbing. It's a large wooden bench with holes carved into it, hanging over a trench of horror. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, chatting politely while trying not to inhale. There's no privacy, there's no toilet paper, there's no dignity. You may make eye contact with the town baker during the process. He will nod solemnly. You will pretend this never happened. Speaking of wiping... Oh right, we should talk about that. Toilet paper, not invented yet. So what do you use? Straw, leaves, moss, a smooth stone if you're fancy, a rag if you're extra lucky but make sure it doesn't belong to your mum's laundry pile, and sometimes, brace yourself, people just don't wipe at all. They just pull up their tunic and move on with their day, which explains a lot about medieval handshakes, or rather, why they weren't a thing. Some folks had wiping sticks. Yes, that's a thing. A literal stick kept near the communal latrine, rinsed occasionally in a stream, or not. Often, not. And if you've ever wondered why medieval clothing involves so many long tunics and cloaks, it's probably to hide the consequences of poor sanitation. Let's just say white linen was not a popular choice. Now, if you're of noble birth, and let's pretend for a moment you're lucky enough to be one of the few who didn't claw their way through life in mud and manure, your toilet experience might involve something called a garderobe. Sounds fancy, right? It's a small stone room built into the side of a castle wall with a hole in the floor. Your waste drops directly into the moat below. Elegant in theory, but remember, moats don't flush. They're stagnant, smelly, and often used for more than one purpose. And yes, your enemies know this. During sieges, soldiers sometimes climbed up through this garderobe chute to sneak into the castle. That's right, someone literally entered a stronghold through the toilet hole. Let that sink in. Or don't. It's already traumatic enough. Back to you, noble or not. There's no running water, no hand soap, no sink. You might rinse your hands in a bucket of cold water. One that your brother also used to clean the chamber pot and your sister used to soak her bandages. Clean is a relative term. Mostly people just wipe their hands on their tunic and keep going. And if you're wondering whether this lack of sanitation caused problems, oh yes, huge ones. Disease ran rampant. Cholera, dysentery and various unnamed medieval tummy monsters regularly swept through towns like unwelcome guests at a dinner party. People got sick. They died. Often. Sometimes entire families would vanish within a week, taken out by contaminated water or food handled by someone who had just wiped with straw and then made soup. Doctors didn't know what bacteria was. Germ theory was centuries away. All they knew was that bad smells meant sickness, which ironically is not entirely wrong, but also not particularly helpful when your daily routine includes throwing poop into the street. There were attempts at improvement. Some towns passed laws requiring people to only dump waste at certain times of day. Others mandated the construction of gutters. But enforcement was laughable, and even when people tried to clean the streets, it usually involved shoveling the waste into a pile and then lighting it on fire. Not a long-term solution, just a smelly one. Even monasteries, which were relatively cleaner than towns, had their issues. Latrines for monks often drained directly into rivers, which, again, might also be the water source for the town downstream. Suddenly, beer for breakfast doesn't sound so weird, does it? And let's not forget the social aspect of toileting. Yes, it was often public. In some villages, men and women relieved themselves in different corners of the square. In others, it was just a free-for-all. Children watched. Animals wandered through. And if you were a servant, you might be tasked with carrying the Lord's night soil out to be dumped, by hand, in a bucket, while dodging chickens and curses. To top it off, the waste wasn't just a health hazard, it was also a weapon. During sieges, defenders would sometimes catapult human waste over castle walls to infect their enemies. And in revenge, attackers might throw in diseased corpses, animal carcasses, or flaming latrines. Because nothing says psychological warfare like airborne poop. So whether you're a peasant squatting in a bucket, a merchant perched over a trench with your tunic bunched under your chin, or a nobleman contemplating life while your waste plummets into the moat, one thing remains constant. It's all disgusting. Utterly, unavoidably, terribly disgusting. And you still haven't brushed your teeth. So you've survived the toilet experience barely. You've navigated the swampy terrain behind your house, made your offering to the bucket gods, and hopefully avoided slipping into the street soup of human refuse. And now, it's time to address a question most modern people never have to ask first thing in the morning. How exactly do I clean my butt? You glance around your muddy little clearing for options. There's no toilet paper. Of course there isn't. Toilet paper won't be invented for centuries. Even when it does show up, it'll be a luxury item for emperors in faraway lands, not for someone who sleeps next to a goat and uses a turnip sack as a pillow. So what do you use instead? The answer depends on where you are, what season it is, and how desperate you're feeling. Option 1. Straw. Dry, brittle, sharp-edged straw. Easy to find, incredibly unpleasant. It's not absorbent, it's not soft, and if you're not careful, it will stab you. Medieval folks probably never heard of paper cuts, but they absolutely knew the pain of a straw scratch in a very private place. Option 2. Leaves. But not all leaves are created equal. Some are soft and pliable, others not so much. Pick the wrong one and you could find yourself mid-wipe with a rash that stays with you for the next week. Or worse, poison ivy. That's a lesson you only need to learn once. Option 3. Rags. If your household is wealthy, or at least better prepared, you might keep a stash of cloth scraps around. But cloth is valuable. If you're reusing it, that means someone's job is to wash it. A fate worse than death. Imagine explaining to your mum that you accidentally dropped the family wiping rag into the soup pot. Again. Option 4. Moss. Yes, moss. Nature's original moist towelette. It's soft, soothing, and surprisingly effective, but it's also seasonal. Try to find a patch of moss in midwinter, and all you'll get is a handful of frozen green sandpaper. Still, of all the natural options, moss is the closest thing to comfort. If you're especially lucky, or especially high up in the food chain, you might have access to wool. Yes, a scrap of it. Just a little square. The medieval version of a premium wipe. You don't use it often. Maybe on feast days, or after spicy stew. It's soft, thick, and absorbs regret beautifully. But again, cleaning it is a nightmare. And then, of course, there's the fifth option, doing absolutely nothing. Many people didn't wipe at all. They just finish their business, pull up their tunic, and go about their day. Let's just say that sitting down was an experience, and chairs didn't last long. If you're wondering why people in medieval art look a little tense, now you know, so now you're done. You've wiped, or you haven't. You've tossed your supplies into the nearest bush, stream, or compost heap. There's no sanitation crew coming by later, no garbage bins, no landfill. It's all just out there, part of the ecosystem. Birds pick at it, dogs roll in it, children trip over it. Medieval nature is interactive. And now your hands. What do you clean them with? The honest answer, you don't. Not really. Soap exists, sort of. Lye-based, homemade, and so harsh it could strip paint off a wagon. It's used more for laundry than for skin, and it leaves your hands smelling like despair and old fat. Most people just rinse their hands in cold water, if at all. Usually the same water they use for dishes or washing clothes, or both. Which means everything you touch today, your food, your clothes, your neighbour's dog, is just a little bit more you than it probably should be. In cities, some public latrines tried to enforce cleanliness. Some even had shared wiping sticks, or communal sponges on sticks, which were dipped in vinegar between uses. Sounds sanitary until you remember that vinegar doesn't kill medieval-grade bacteria, it just adds a tang. And that's assuming people bothered. Many didn't. Most villagers operated on a very different hygiene philosophy. If it doesn't smell too bad, it's probably fine. But this lack of hygiene wasn't just a personal problem, it was a communal one. Streets filled with waste led to plagues. Open defecation contaminated water sources. Poor sanitation contributed to widespread illness, infant mortality, and that special kind of misery only history textbooks dare to describe. You'd think people would do something about it. But without germ theory, they had no idea what was causing the sickness. They blamed bad smells, evil spirits, the alignment of planets, or that one guy down the road who never went to church. Ironically, they did notice that people who lived cleaner lives, like monks in well-managed monasteries, tended to live longer. But they chalked it up to divine favour, not better hygiene. So rather than wash more, they just prayed harder. Even castles weren't immune. You'd think that lords and ladies had better facilities, and yes, their guardrobes were fancier, built into stone walls and perched above cesspits. But these privies were rarely cleaned, and when the wind blew the wrong way, whew. Royalty or not, everyone's nose worked the same. Some castles even had multiple privy towers, complete with chutes leading straight to the moat, which means the next time you picture a shimmering castle moat, remember, it doubled as a toilet. The fish in it. Let's just say you don't want them on your dinner plate. And yes, there are records of enemies using these waste chutes to invade castles. That's right. A medieval warrior once climbed up through someone else's waste stream just to storm a tower. Forget swords and armour. The real courage was crawling through poop with purpose. Back in your village, you're now ready to begin the rest of your morning. After stepping over the contents of the alley, after not washing your hands, and after scratching at the back of your knee because something is definitely crawling. You haven't eaten, you haven't dressed, you haven't prayed, but you've survived the first trial of the day, the bucket, the dump, the wipe, and you did it without crying. Well, not out loud. And now, somehow, you're supposed to go on as if this is normal, because it is. So you're upright, relieved, sort of, and partially wiped, depending on how brave or desperate you were this morning. And now it's time to tend to that medieval grin of yours. Yes, we're going to talk about teeth. Or more accurately, the lack of attention medieval folks gave them. The idea of dental hygiene in the 1300s is, let's say, loose. If you're picturing floss, mouthwash, or a hygienist scraping plaque while smooth jazz plays in the background, go ahead and throw that image out the window, preferably into the street where everyone else dumps things. You probably start the day with your teeth feeling like you chewed on a wool sock soaked in barley soup. The taste in your mouth is a combination of stale ale, bad dreams, and something vaguely metallic. Maybe that's blood. Maybe it's last night's onion stew staging a comeback. Either way, your mouth is a medieval mystery. So, how do you brush your teeth? Well, you don't. Not the way we do. The idea of a toothbrush doesn't even hit Western Europe until centuries later. What you do have is a stick. A chew stick, to be precise. It's usually a frayed twig from a tree with supposed medicinal qualities, like hazelwood or elm. You chew one end until it gets brushy, then rub it against your teeth and gums. The result? A cleaner mouth, maybe. A splinter in your lip, definitely. Some folks rinse with water, some rinse with vinegar. A few try wine, hoping the alcohol will do something useful. If not for their breath, then at least for their mood. And yes, in some parts of Europe, they'd even rinse with beer. Because if you're going to walk around with a medieval mouth, you might as well be slightly tipsy while doing it. Tooth powder was occasionally used by the wealthier classes, made from crushed bones, burnt rosemary, powdered salt, or even ground-up oyster shells. Imagine scrubbing your enamel with seafood sand and wondering why your gums bleed. But it was minty, sort of. Still, most people just didn't bother. Teeth were tools, not trophies. You used them to rip bread, gnaw dried meat, and maybe open the occasional walnut. No one expected you to have a radiant smile. In fact, smiles in portraits were rare, because artists knew, if you opened your mouth, things got scary. Which brings us to the condition of your teeth. They are bad. You've probably already lost one or two, maybe more if you're older or had a rough winter. Cavities aren't treated. If something hurts, you either ignore it or beg the local barber surgeon to yank it out. Without anesthesia. Picture it. You're tied to a stool in the town's square. Someone hands you a piece of leather to bite down on. The barber, who also cuts hair, drains blood, and occasionally dabbles in dentistry, approaches with an iron hook and a prayer. There's a crack, a scream, a tooth, and probably some bits of jawbone that weren't meant to come out. The infection afterward? That's just part of the experience. You stuff the hole with herbs, rinse with wine, and hope your body fights off the rot before it spreads to your brain. If not, well, at least you won't have to wipe anymore. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly had worse teeth than we do today. On one hand, they didn't have sugar, at least not the refined stuff that wrecks modern mouths. On the other, their cleaning methods were, let's say, rustic. And their diets, not exactly friendly to enamel. Lots of coarse bread, dried meats, and gritty porridges that wore down teeth like medieval sandpaper. In fact, one strange tidbit: some people had such worn teeth that they developed grooves across the middle from years of holding things in their mouths, like nails, sewing needles, or even thread. Yes, your mouth was not just for chewing. It was your third hand. And that smell? Oh, the smell. Bad breath wasn't just common, it was legendary. With rotting teeth, infected gums, and a diet heavy in onions, ale, and dairy, your breath could strip the paint off a chapel door. No wonder medieval courtship was heavy on poetry and light on kissing. But there were attempts at improvement. Some nobles carried little clove pouches to chew on. Others wore scented gloves and used perfumed handkerchiefs, which they pressed discreetly to their noses when talking to someone. Aromatic. A polite way of saying, I'm smiling, but I'm also dying inside. And yet, despite all this, the mouth was still considered a reflection of health. A person with a full set of teeth was rare enough to be admired. A person with white teeth. Practically mythical. Some people even stain their teeth deliberately with herbs or wine to appear more distinguished, because nothing says refined like burgundy molars. Then there's the monks. Monastic communities occasionally had more advanced hygiene practices, including basic oral care. But even here, the effort varied. Some monasteries insisted on cleanliness as a form of discipline. Others saw personal hygiene as vanity. And let's be real, if Brother Stephen hasn't spoken in 12 years, he's probably not brushing either. And don't even think about floss. The only string you're going to find is the one tying your shoes, if you're lucky. Eventually, as trade routes expanded and spices became available, people began to use mint, anise, and cloves for breath freshening. But in your little village, those luxuries are for nobles. You'll settle for not bleeding every time you chew. Now imagine going through your day, chewing bark or crusty bread, trying not to wince when your molar zings with pain. Maybe you'd avoid speaking too loudly, in case someone caught a whiff. Or maybe you just accept it, because everyone else smells the same. You're not alone in your halitosis, and after all that, it's time to move on. You've brushed your teeth with a twig, ignored your bleeding gums, winced through a painful chew, and rinsed with water that was probably downstream of someone else's dump bucket. Welcome to medieval dental care, and still, the day is just getting started. Now that your mouth is vaguely less horrifying, though let's not get carried away, it's time to face one of the most avoided rituals of medieval life: bathing. Yes, bathing. The act of putting your entire medieval body into water with the intention of removing the grime that is now more a part of you than your actual personality. Let's set expectations first. You're not bathing every day, not every week, possibly not even every month. In fact, you might only bathe a few times a year, and that's assuming nothing terrible has happened, like war, famine, or Lent. The idea of regular bathing is, in many places, either suspicious or downright discouraged. Some people genuinely believe washing too often weakens the body, that it opens up your pores to miasmas, bad air filled with disease. There's a common belief that dirt is a protective barrier, like armour, but smellier. Historians still argue whether medieval people bathed more often than we assume, or if the whole idea of washing was viewed with medieval skepticism. Some records suggest peasants bathed seasonally, nobles occasionally, and monks, if their rule allowed, did so as an act of cleanliness and humility. But many people relied on dry cleaning methods, scraping off dirt with a knife, rubbing down with a rough cloth, or simply layering on more clothes and hoping the problem solves itself. You, on the other hand, have decided to try your luck with actual water. Brave. Foolish, but brave. So what are your options? If you're incredibly fortunate, your village has a bathhouse. It's a big wooden building with a giant tub or wooden barrel where people gather, disrobe and sit in hot water. Communally, men, women, children, all together. The bathwater is heated over a fire and reused throughout the day, meaning you're definitely not the first person in it, and probably not the 10th. There's no soap. Not really. Maybe lye soap if the bathkeeper's feeling generous. More likely you'll get a bucket of tepid water dumped over your head, a good scrub with a coarse rag, and a brisk warning to mind your boils. But public baths are rare, and becoming rarer. The church increasingly frowns on mixed gender bathing. Too many sins, too much nudity, too much laughter in a world that should apparently be focused on suffering. So if you're not in a city with a functioning bathhouse, you're left with one option. The river. Yes, the river. Cold, brown, fast-moving, and likely downstream from the tannery. But it's there. It's free. And if you don't mind risking pneumonia, leeches, and public shame, you can dunk yourself in and scrub until your limbs go numb. You wade in carefully, trying to keep your balance as slippery rocks shift under your feet. The water bites at your skin. Your breath catches. You shiver violently, teeth chattering like tiny castanets. And then comes the first splash to the face. A shock of icy regret that tells you, in no uncertain terms, that you're alive and probably making a mistake. You try to scrub. You rub your arms with wet grass. You splash water under your arms and down your legs. You scrub behind your ears like your grandmother used to tell you. And just as you're starting to feel marginally cleaner, splat. A large fish leaps out of the water and slaps against your knee. Or maybe that was a frog. Maybe it was a rat. You'll never know. Meanwhile, a group of kids is watching you from the bank, giggling and pointing. One of them shouts, "Don't worry, the pigs used that spot yesterday." Encouraging. Eventually your body starts to go numb. Not from relaxation, from the cold. Your fingers are white. Your toes no longer exist. You stagger out of the water, dripping, muddy, and shaking. You wrap yourself in your scratchy wool tunic, the same one that caused the itch in the first place, and immediately regret your entire decision. Congratulations, you're cleanish, for now. And what happens next? You get dirty again, instantly, because you still have to walk through the same mud, tend to the same animals, and sleep in the same bed that's home to more insects than you can count. It's a losing battle, but one worth fighting occasionally. Just don't expect praise. Bathing is a private affair, often seen as vain. If you're too clean, people might get suspicious. What are you trying to prove? Are you trying to seduce someone? Are you French? Yes, the French were somewhat known for their bathing habits. Public bathhouses thrived in Paris for a time, and cleanliness was encouraged in some areas. But over time, especially as disease and religious fear crept in, public opinion shifted. Cleanliness became suspect. Dirt, oddly, became godly. Still, some nobles embraced cleanliness as a luxury. They bathed in large wooden tubs filled by servants. They added herbs, oils, even milk. Because why not bathe in breakfast? But even these luxury baths were rare. Heating that much water was a massive effort. And once a noble had bathed in it, no one else was allowed to touch it. So, yes, wasteful. In peasant homes, bathing meant dragging water from a well, heating it over the fire, and pouring it into a wooden tub the whole family would share, eldest to youngest. By the time little baby Thomas had his turn, the water resembled weak soup and smelled like an armpit stew. One quirky tidbit: some people bathed their feet separately. Foot baths were more common than full body baths, because feet were especially important and especially gross. After a long day in muddy shoes or barefoot among the livestock, soaking your feet became its own event. Usually in a wooden basin with herbs or vinegar, and preferably away from food prep areas. Though, not always. And what about your hair? If you had the luxury of hot water and time, you'd dunk your head, scrub with ash or soap root and rinse. But more often than not, you just combed it, if you owned a comb. Made from wood, bone or horn, these combs were carved with wide teeth for lice removal. Because yes, lice were constant companions. Some people carried little pouches of herbs or wore lard in their hair to suffocate the bugs. Others shaved their heads entirely, especially monks. Not always for fashion, often out of sheer desperation. So now, let's summarise your experience. You bathe rarely. When you do, it's cold, public, and slightly traumatic. Soap burns your skin, water carries disease, cleanliness may lead to accusations of vanity or witchcraft. But after a river dip and some vigorous grass scrubbing, you feel marginally refreshed, slightly less itchy, a little more human. You step back into your hovel, dripping. The warmth of the hearth welcomes you, even as the smoke makes your eyes water. You sit down on the floor, your wet tunic steaming faintly, and realise something. You're still dirty. Not just physically, but cosmically. The Middle Ages are not here to cleanse you. They're here to test your tolerance for filth. And so, you scratch your elbow, sniff your armpit, and sigh. At least the lice will be confused for a few hours. You've survived the bath, or more accurately, you've survived the medieval idea of a bath, which is somewhere between punishment and performance art. Now, it's time to get dressed for the day, and let's just say you're not exactly spoiled for choice. There's no walk-in closet, no colour-coded wardrobe, no options at all really. You own one outfit, maybe two if you're wealthy or incredibly lucky. Most days it's the same rough woolen tunic you've worn for months, if not years. It used to be some sort of earthy colour, brown, beige, maybe a mossy green. But now it's just a mysterious patchwork of stains and textures. Stiff in some places, threadbare in others, and always itchy, like wearing a hay bale that resents you. Your undergarment is a linen shirt, or more likely a scrap of linen that was once a shirt and is now more whole than fabric. If you're a woman, you've got a long smock under your gown, maybe an apron, and your hair covered modestly, because nothing says piety like a headscarf concealing a lice colony. You reach for your hose, tight-fitting wool leg coverings that make you feel like a medieval superhero, if superheroes had to deal with crotch chafing and saggy knees. They don't stay up well, so you tie them to your belt, which is just a strip of leather with dreams of being useful. If you're really struggling, you wrap a bit of twine around your thighs. It helps, until you try to walk. And the shoes? You laugh, or cry, or do both, because your shoes are handmade, ill-fitting leather flaps that barely count as protection. They're worn thin at the sole, leaking at the toe, and when it rains, and it always rains, they transform into cold, muddy sponges. Socks? No such luxury. You line your shoes with straw if you're lucky, old rags if you're desperate. You scratch at your shoulder, something wriggles. Lice again. You pull at the seam of your sleeve and notice it's come undone. For the 5th time. You remind yourself to ask the neighbour's wife to patch it up again. She's good with a needle, at least when she isn't too busy delivering babies or boiling cabbage. As you dress, you marvel at how medieval fashion is all about layers, but not in the stylish, Pinteresty way. More like layers of survival, one to keep the cold out, one to hide the dirt, one to keep the lice confused. The sum total of your wardrobe is designed not for fashion, but for pure endurance. And then you top it off. If you're a man, maybe a coif, a tight-fitting linen cap that makes you look like a grumpy baby. If you're a woman, perhaps a wimple, a full head and neck covering that transforms your face into a floating crescent of modesty. Either way, your head is covered. Not for sun protection, but for decency, and more importantly, to contain the infestation. Historians still debate how often people change clothes. Some records suggest weekly shifts, Others say monthly. It probably depended on the weather, your social class, and how badly your neighbours complained. Washing clothes was a chore, and by chore, we mean an all-day event involving boiling water, wood ash, scrubbing boards, and prayers. You didn't just toss your clothes into a laundry basket and walk away. You had to haul water from the well, build a fire to heat it, shred your hands scrubbing fabric against a stone, and then wring everything out by hand before hanging it to dry, if the rain didn't come first. And even then, clean was subjective. If it smelled less like goat, you called it a win. Most peasants only washed their outer garments a few times a year. Undergarments, if they existed, were washed more often. Because even in the Middle Ages, some people drew the line at wearing fermented linen next to their nether regions. But let's say you're a noble. Surely things are better for you, right? Kind of. You do have more clothes, richer fabrics, fancier stitching. You wear velvets, furs and silks imported at obscene prices. Your outfits are layered for warmth and status. The more complex your wardrobe, the more servants required to help you into it. And that, in medieval logic, is power. But here's the kicker. Nobles didn't necessarily wash their clothes more often. Washing delicate fabrics was dangerous and expensive. So instead, they perfumed them. That's right. They masked odours with lavender, rose water, or sachets of crushed herbs sewn into the seams. Think of it like medieval Febreze, effective in theory, terrifying in execution. Royalty took it further. Records describe King Louis XIV of France wearing the same shirt for weeks at a time. Queen Elizabeth owned hundreds of gowns, but rarely wore the same one twice. Not because they were dirty, but because fashion was politics. Meanwhile, the underlayers rotted quietly beneath the jewels. One quirky tidbit: some nobles wore scented gloves, not for warmth, for survival. The idea was that if your hands smelled like oranges or cinnamon, you could avoid the stench of others and maybe, just maybe, dodge the plague. Historians now believe this was optimistic. If you're a monk, your wardrobe is simpler. One robe, maybe two if you're lucky, made of undyed wool, durable, modest, and gloriously scratchy. The monastic life wasn't about comfort, it was about suffering with dignity, which explains why they often looked like walking burlap sacks with excellent posture. And no matter who you are, you don't have a mirror, at least not a good one. Polished metal maybe, a reflective bowl of water if you're resourceful, which means you're walking around in wrinkled, stained, semi-tied garments, with no idea what you actually look like. And honestly, that might be for the best. Because once you're dressed, you step outside and immediately undo any progress you've made. The muddy road clings to your shoes, the wind blows soot into your sleeves, a pig sneezes on your shin. And you realise medieval clothing isn't about looking good, it's about surviving the hour. You tug your belt tighter, adjust your lumpy hood, and scratch the back of your neck. There's definitely something nesting there. Could be a flea, could be a philosophical question. Either way, you ignore it. Your outfit's complete. You look like everyone else, tired, itchy, and wrapped in 14 layers of damp wool. And with that, it's time to face the day. You step out into the grey light of morning, fully dressed in your stiff woolen armour of daily despair. The breeze greets you like a slap, sharp and damp, carrying with it the scent of manure, soot, wet timber, and something faintly fishy, despite the nearest body of water being a full day's walk away. You take a long breath through your mouth and immediately regret it. Your nose itches, your collar chafes, and you know what's coming next. The lice are awake. Hair care in medieval times isn't about looking good. It's not even really about feeling good. It's about surviving with your scalp still attached, and your dignity only partially gnawed by bugs. You don't have shampoo, you don't have conditioner, you don't even have running water. What you do have is a bone comb with 2 broken teeth, a patch of rough cloth, and an eternally itchy head. You pick up your comb and drag it slowly through your hair. It catches immediately. You tug, it catches again. With a frustrated sigh, you start over, this time pulling through with more determination. A few lice tumble out onto your sleeve. You inspect one, squinting at it like an old rival, then pinch it between your fingernails. Crack, satisfying, primitive, unending. This is your routine every morning. Some families make a ritual out of it. Sitting by the fire, they take turns combing through each other's hair, popping lice, comparing numbers, gossiping all the while. It's not considered gross, it's considered bonding. Nothing says love like checking someone's scalp for pests before dinner. The problem, of course, isn't just lice, it's the constant scratching. Behind your ears, at the base of your neck, in places you didn't even realise grew hair. The itching becomes background noise, like the clanging of the church bell or the squealing of the pigs. You scratch without thinking. You scratch while talking, walking, eating. You even scratch in your sleep and wake up with tiny crescent-shaped cuts from your own fingernails. If you're a woman, your hair is your burden and your badge. As soon as you're considered of marrying age, which disturbingly could be 12 or 13, you're expected to cover it. Not for cleanliness, mind you, for modesty. Loose hair is considered seductive, even scandalous. So you wrap it in a kerchief or bind it into tight braids beneath a wimple. It doesn't stop the lice. They're equal opportunity invaders, but at least it hides the problem. Out of sight, out of scandal. Some women try home remedies. They rub ashes into their scalp, believing it suffocates the bugs. Others smear on lard and then wrap their heads in cloth overnight. In the morning they comb the greasy strands and hope the lice come out with them. It sometimes works. It always smells. Men have their own problems. Most keep their hair shoulder length or shorter, tied back or stuffed under caps. Shaving is an option, but a dangerous one. Razors are basically sharpened bits of metal, and hot water is a rare luxury. A bad shave can lead to infection, and infection leads to the grave. So beards are popular, not because they're fashionable, but because they're safer. A scruffy face is the look of survival. Of course, a beard requires care too. You can't just let it grow wild unless you want soup permanently stored in your chin. So you clean it with the same soap you use for laundry, if you have any, and pick food bits out with your fingernails. You might even brush it with a twig. It's not glamorous, but it beats pulling straw out of your face during mealtime. There's also the danger of beard porridge. A charming little term for the mixture of sweat, dirt, food drippings, and whatever else accumulates in your facial hair over time. It's not something you see, it's something you smell. And if someone else smells it before you do, congratulations. You've just earned a new nickname that will follow you for life. For those higher up the social ladder, hair care is only slightly more luxurious. Nobles have a tendency to brush their hair, apply scented oils, and keep lice at bay with herbal sachets. Lavender, rosemary and mint are the popular choices, though they often just mask the problem rather than solving it. If you're really wealthy, you might even own a silver comb. Fancy, still full of lice. And then there are the monks. Monks don't bother with fashion. Their hair is shaved into tonsures, those famous bald circles ringed by fringe. It's not a style choice. It's a symbol of humility and devotion. And honestly, it's pretty practical. Less hair, fewer lice. Not zero lice though. Never zero. Historians still argue whether lice were accepted as inevitable or fought with any real enthusiasm. Some evidence suggests people simply endured them. Others point to manuals that detail elaborate and painful methods for dealing with infestations. Boiling clothes, soaking hair in vinegar, rubbing garlic into the scalp. All creative, all moderately effective, all incredibly unpleasant. One strange fact: some believed lice were a sign of holiness. Yes, you heard that right. It was thought that saints and martyrs suffered lice as part of their divine trials. So if you were especially itchy, congratulations. You might be halfway to sainthood. Just don't scratch during Mass. It gets worse. Lice weren't the only visitors. Fleas loved hair too, especially if it was long and rarely washed. So did mites, ticks, and other uninvited guests from the animal kingdom. Some even claimed rats nested in people's hair while they slept, though that's probably an exaggeration, hopefully. The tools at your disposal are few. You have your comb, maybe some hot water, a pinch of herbs, and an endless supply of patience. And even then, You're never fully free. Your scalp always tingles. Your fingers always twitch. You get a moment of peace, maybe an hour before the itching starts again. You look at your reflection in a puddle. Your hair is frizzy, matted in places, and probably moving slightly. You sigh, adjust your hood, and walk away. Behind you, a rooster crows. Ahead, your neighbour waves. His beard is twitching. You wave back. It's just another day in the medieval world, where your hair is not just your crown, but your battleground. And as you scratch behind your ear for the 10th time before breakfast, you realise something profound. The lice have names now, and one of them is winning. You've made peace. Well, more like a grudging armistice, with your hair and the buzzing empires that call your scalp home. Now comes the next trial in your daily pilgrimage through medieval life: laundry. Or more precisely, the Sisyphean effort to get your one beloved tunic from biohazard to mildly damp and wearable. Let's begin with this universal truth of the Middle Ages. Laundry is not something people do casually. It's not a Saturday chore while listening to a podcast. It's not tossing clothes into a machine, adding lemon-scented detergent and walk it away. No, laundry in this world is a day-long, back-breaking, skin-peeling, bucket-hauling ordeal. That is, if you even bother at all, because most people didn't. You wear your clothes until they're stiff, until they hold their shape without you inside them, until you notice people stepping slightly away from you at church. Then, and only then, do you consider washing them. The standard approach? Ignore it until the smell rises in protest. Why so rarely? For starters, you only own 1 or 2 outfits, each made from heavy wool or coarse linen, stitched by hand, patched a dozen times and entirely irreplaceable. Washing them too often wears them out. And replacing clothes, that takes time, money, and a weaver who isn't already 3 months behind on spinning thread for the Lord's new leggings. But let's say you decide today is the day. Laundry day. First, you need water. Lots of it. There's no tap, no hose, no plumbing. You grab your wooden bucket, head to the well at the edge of town, shared with 30 families and the occasional goat, and start hauling. The well's rope is frayed. The bucket leaks. Your arms ache by the time you're halfway back home, and now you need more. Because 1 bucket isn't enough. Once you've collected enough water and tried not to spill too much, you light a fire to heat it. Washing with cold water is possible but miserable. Hot water softens grime, eases scrubbing, and makes your hands slightly less numb. It also turns the act of laundry into something resembling a dangerous science experiment. Flames licking the sides of the iron cauldron, smoke stinging your eyes, your wool tunic waiting nearby like a reluctant patient about to undergo medieval surgery. Then there's soap. If you're lucky, you have some. It's not soap as you know it, though. This version is a chalky grey lump made from animal fat and wood ash, sometimes mixed with herbs to cut the scent. It's greasy, caustic, and capable of removing not just stains but the top layer of your skin. You eye it warily. It eyes you back. You dunk your tunic in the hot water, add the soap and begin the timeless ritual of scrubbing, pounding, wringing and weeping. There's no washboard. You use a flat rock, maybe a plank of wood if you're fancy. You beat the fabric like it owes you money, flip it, beat it again, scrub it with your hands. Elbow grease is your only technology. The dirt doesn't come out easily. It's not just on the fabric, it's in it. Years of sweat, animal dander, turnip stew, smoke, and something you suspect might be blood, though you're too tired to care. You keep scrubbing. Your fingers go red, your knuckles crack, the soap stings, the tunic resists. Eventually you rinse it. Once, twice, 3 times. The water turns brown, then grey, then a shade of sadness. You lift the garment out of the tub, heavy with history, and begin wringing it out. Twist, twist again. Your wrists ache. Water drips down your elbows. You're soaked, you're sweating, and you haven't even done your underclothes yet. Which brings up another point. underclothes. If you even have them, they're the first things to get washed and the last things to dry. Linen smocks, breeches, chemises. These get worn close to the body and collect everything the tunic doesn't. They're slightly easier to wash, but no less exhausting. And when you're done, you have to hang them up. Somewhere. Drying is another challenge. In summer, you can use a hedge, a rope line, or the bare ground if you don't mind the chickens pecking at your cuffs. In winter, good luck. Clothes freeze stiff. You have to thaw them before wearing them again. Nothing says morning routine like breaking the ice off your sleeves just to pull them on. And if the weather turns, if it rains, all that effort, gone. Your freshly laundered tunic sags in the mud, soaked again, probably ruined. You mutter curses in 5 languages and drag it back inside. It'll dry by spring. Maybe. Then there are the stains that never leave. Medieval stains are not shy. They embed themselves into the fabric like unwelcome tenants. Grease, ash, soot, blood, dung, ale, cabbage broth. You name it. It sticks. People try everything. Urine, yes, really. Vinegar, salt, hot stones. Most of it just makes the stain worse or moves it to another part of the garment. Your neighbours aren't judging you, of course. Their clothes look just as tragic. Everyone is carrying a collection of patched elbows, singed hems, torn sleeves, and mysterious crusty spots. Clothes are more than fashion, they're biography. A burn mark? That's from when you reached too close to the hearth. A tear? That's from the hay cart that didn't stop in time. A faint green streak? You don't remember what caused it, and you're afraid to ask. Laundry isn't just about hygiene. It's about survival. It's about preserving what little you own, one scrub at a time. And it's also gendered. Most of the washing falls to women, wives, daughters, washerwomen, who endure cold water, raw skin, and endless repetition to keep the household from descending into chaos. Their hands are blistered, their backs are bent, but they know what they're doing. In towns, professional washerwomen operate near rivers, bashing linens on stones with ferocious precision. They shout over the water, over the they laugh loudly. They share gossip that travels faster than pigeons. Don't cross a washerwoman. She knows what you wore, who you sat next to, and how often you wash your underthings. She's basically the medieval equivalent of social media. So after all this, hauling, heating, scrubbing, wringing, drying, you hold up your freshly cleaned tunic. It's not pristine, not soft, but it smells slightly less like old cheese and more like smoke and pride. You fold it, or rather ball it up and place it on a bench to finish drying. You've earned a rest, and just as you're about to sit down, your little brother tracks in a trail of manure across the floor, straight onto your clean clothes. You stare. He grins. The goat sneezes, and somewhere the lice are laughing. At this point, your clothes are at least somewhat dry, though not exactly warm and definitely not soft. Still, they're wearable again, which in the medieval world is a victory. You pull the tunic over your head, wriggle your arms through the sleeves, and shift your weight to stretch the stiff fabric into something resembling comfort. It's scratchy, it smells faintly of smoke and soap, and you're 70% sure you just put it on backwards. But there's no time for vanity. You've got work to do. The medieval day isn't structured by alarms or schedules, it's shaped by the sun. And the sun, that impatient orb, has already risen above the village roofs. Birds are squabbling in the rafters, pigs are squealing in the lane, and a neighbour is already shouting about missing firewood. You sigh, grab your worn leather belt and shuffle into the daylight. Let's be clear, everyone works. Man, woman, child. If you can walk, you're considered useful. If you can lift something without fainting, you've just earned yourself another task. There's no retirement, no weekends, no concept of me time. The closest thing you get to a break is if you're too sick to stand, and even then, someone's still handing you a spindle. As a peasant, your life revolves around survival. You farm, you cook, you tend animals, you repair your hut. The seasons rule everything. Spring means planting, summer means tending, autumn means harvesting, and winter means praying. The other 3 seasons went well. Right now it's early spring. The ground is soft, the mud is legendary, and the list of chores is longer than your life expectancy. Your first job, mucking the animals. Yes, mucking. It sounds quaint until you're knee-deep in it. The pigsty smells like a warm, wet sock filled with turnips and regret. The straw is soaked through. The pigs are delighted. They wallow in it with glee, oinking with that smug contentment only creatures immune to their own stench can enjoy. You grab your wooden pitchfork and start scooping. It's heavy, it's sticky, it's uncooperative. You heave it into a wheelbarrow made of creaking wood and wobbling wheels. The flies arrive instantly. They swarm your face, your arms, your mouth if you're unlucky. You spit one out, maybe two. You trudge to the compost pile behind the shed, a massive steaming mound of rot, food scraps, dung and mystery gunk that even the dogs won't approach. You dump the load, swat at the cloud of buzzing spectators, and trudge back for more. Meanwhile, your mother is lighting the fire in the hearth, boiling yesterday's pottage, and kneading bread with one hand while holding a screaming toddler with the other. Your father is sharpening tools. Your younger brother is chasing a chicken with a rope. The chicken is winning. Everyone has their role, no one is idle. After the animals are cleaned and fed, you move to the field. It's not far, nothing is. Your entire life is within walking distance. Your home, your crops, your church, your grave. The field is patchy. Rocks jut out like defiant little monuments. The soil is wet and stubborn. You grab a hoe and begin breaking clumps, trying not to think about your sore back, or your freezing fingers, or the blister forming on your palm. Farming is slow, painful, and thankless. And if the weather turns, if the rains don't come or come too hard, or the wind ruins the seedlings, your entire year is ruined. There are no backup plans, no savings. If the harvest fails, you starve. Simple math. Horrifying consequences. Historians still argue whether the average medieval peasant worked harder than modern people. Some say the hours were fewer, sunrise to sunset, with seasonal lulls. Others argue the intensity, physical strain, and complete lack of tools made every task 10 times harder. Either way, by midday your muscles scream and your fingers are numb, so you take a break. Lunch isn't glamorous. It's the heel of yesterday's bread, some cold pottage, and maybe, if you're lucky, a hunk of cheese that hasn't gone completely blue. You sit on a stone wall, chew slowly, and watch the village pass by. A dog barks at nothing. A boy chases a cartwheel. A girl stirs a pot over an open fire. A man with one eye spits into the dust and mutters about taxes, which reminds you, you owe taxes. Again, you don't pay with coins. You pay with grain, eggs, a portion of your harvest, your labour, or whatever the local law demands. He doesn't ask if you can afford it. He just sends a steward to collect. If you're late, they take more. If you resist, they take your goat. Or worse, the church collects too. Tithes. 1/10 of what you have, even if it's already not enough. The priest says it's for your soul. You wonder if your soul can be fed barley mash and survive another winter. But you don't complain. Not out loud. That's dangerous. You just chew your crust, squint at the sky, and try to guess if it'll rain. Then it's back to work. Afternoons are more of the same. Digging, chopping, hauling, mending. You patch the roof with straw. You fix a fence. You rewrap the twine on your shoes. You milk the goat. You spill the milk. You curse quietly, hoping no one hears. There's no such thing as idle time. If you're not working, you're preparing. If you're not preparing, you're repairing. And if you're not doing any of that, someone will find you and assign you a new task. Maybe the Lord wants a ditch dug. Maybe the miller's ox needs shoeing. Maybe the church bell rope snapped again. It never ends. And yet, in these moments, there's something oddly grounding. You know what needs doing. You do it. The work is brutal, but it's clear, honest. You dig a hole, and the hole appears. You carry firewood, and the hearth grows warm. There's a rhythm to it, simple and stubborn. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the village, your arms ache. Your clothes are stiff with sweat, and your hands are coated in grime. But you've made it through another medieval day, or at least the labour part of it. Now it's time to clean up. if that's even possible, and brace yourself for dinner, where hygiene, nutrition and appetite collide in surprising ways. Section 10. After a long day of labour that's tested your back, your resolve, and your ability to not scream into a bale of hay, you finally make it home. Not to a warm shower or a bowl of pho, but to your single-room hovel, dimly lit, slightly damp, and smelling of wood smoke, onions, and something else. Something living. Possibly something sentient. The first thing you want is a drink, and here lies one of medieval life's most peculiar truths. You don't drink water. Not if you can help it. Water, that clear, life-giving staple of modern existence, is one of the most dangerous substances you could consume in this era. Streams and wells are contaminated. The same river where you gather drinking water also serves as a latrine, a washing station, a laundry dump, and occasionally a graveyard for unfortunate ducks. So what do you drink? Beer. And not because you're looking to party, it's because beer is safer than water. Even children drink it. It's called small beer, a weakly fermented brew with low alcohol content. It's cloudy, warm, and tastes vaguely like cereal that someone left on the windowsill for a week, but it won't kill you. Probably. Brewing beer is a household task, especially among peasants. You boil the water first, a rare step that makes it safe, then add barley, yeast, herbs, and patience. The end result is something drinkable, nourishing, and mildly calming, which is exactly what you need when your life involves that many lice. But not everyone has barley to spare. In lean times, beer gets weaker, thinner, or sometimes skipped altogether. You might turn to ale made from oats, or fermented cider if you have apples. In coastal towns, people even brewed salty versions of mead flavoured with seaweed. Refreshing. In the same way being slapped by a wet cod is refreshing. Occasionally brave souls drink water anyway. You dip a bucket into a well and hope it hasn't been tampered with, or worse, blessed by rats. You might strain it through cloth or leave it to settle, but the risk remains. Illness spreads fast. Dysentery, cholera, typhoid. These aren't abstract fears. They're daily risks. A single sip could flatten a village. Historians still debate how well medieval people understood the danger. They didn't have germ theory, but they knew water from certain places made you sick. They blamed bad air or curses, but the solution, drink beer instead, was remarkably effective. Accidentally smart, as it turns out. You take a sip from your earthenware mug. It's lukewarm, it's sour, there's something floating in it. You drink it anyway. It quenches your thirst, numbs your sore muscles, and, if you're lucky, takes the edge off the scent of your own tunic. While sipping, you listen to the sounds of home. Someone's poking at the fire. A child is coughing. The wind whistles through the thatch above. You can hear your neighbour's goat snoring on the other side of the wall. All is normal. Now that you're not moving, the grime of the day makes itself known. Your fingernails are lined with soil. Your arms are streaked with soot. You smell like sweat, sheep, and soup, all baked in under the afternoon sun. A modern person might sprint to a shower at this point. You, however, rinse your hands in a wooden bowl and consider that a win. Soap is a rare commodity. If you have it, it's that harsh lye lump again, too rough for daily use. Most of the time, you just wipe your hands on your clothes, or rub them with sand, or rinse in leftover beer. It's about the appearance of clean, not actual sanitation. Dinner is served shortly after dusk. It's a communal affair. A single pot, one dish, multiple hands. Everyone shares from the same wooden bowls or eats directly from the pot. Spoons are communal, if they exist at all. You might have your own knife, carried on your belt, which you use for everything. Cutting meat, trimming wood, even picking your teeth. Tonight's meal is pottage. Again, a thick stew made from whatever vegetables you have, maybe a handful of oats, a shred of bacon if it's a feast day. The pottage has been cooking for hours, sometimes days, with new ingredients added as old ones are eaten. It's a medieval slow cooker, and it never truly empties. It just evolves. You take your portion, blow on it, and bite. It's hot, bland, and oddly comforting. You don't ask what's in it. Sometimes it's better not to know. While you eat, conversation flows, low and steady. News from other villages, complaints about the Lord, whispers of a sickness in the next town over, jokes about the priest's lazy donkey. Life is hard, but laughter helps. Even if it's just about lice, goats, or who tripped in the mud today. Someone passes a crust of bread. It's stale, but you dip it in the pottage and soften it up. You chew slowly, savouring each bite. Not because it's delicious, but because you don't know how long it'll be until you get more. Food security is not a guarantee. Harvests fail, supplies run out, winter looms. You eat with the urgency of someone who's known hunger. After dinner you rinse the bowl maybe, or just wipe it out with a bit of bread. Plates are wooden or clay, sometimes pewter if you're rich. There's no soap, no sponge, no hot water. Clean is relative. You sit near the hearth, stomach full, muscles aching, and the familiar warmth of the fire slowly replaces the exhaustion of the day. The flames crackle, embers glow. You pull your knees to your chest and wrap your arms around them, rocking slightly in rhythm with the settling timbers. The children are already dozing off in the straw. The dog curls up by the door. Outside, the night wind howls, carrying with it the scent of wood smoke, earth, and someone's unfortunate outhouse accident. You look at the last few inches of your beer. It's flat, it's warm, it's perfect. And with that, you settle in for the night, wondering what tomorrow's water will taste like. Probably like goat, again. The fire has burned low now. Shadows ripple across the walls of your home, cast by the last amber flickers of wood exhausted from a day of doing what you've done, giving everything it had to keep the cold away. You sit still on a wooden stool that's a bit too low, hunched forward with your arms hugging your knees. Your legs are stiff, your neck sore, and every part of you itches just slightly. From dust, from sweat, from the ever-present invisible army known only as the things that live in your clothes. It's getting late, or what counts as late in a world without clocks. Darkness came hours ago, and while the village has no true curfew, the rules are clear. When the sun sets, so do you. It's not safe outside, not just because of wild animals or bandits or the cold, but because you simply can't see anything. There's no street light, no lantern at the end of the lane, just a moon that might be hiding and stars that don't care where you step. You move slowly toward your sleeping place. Bed is perhaps too generous. It's a wooden frame if you're lucky, with ropes stretched tight underneath. Or maybe just a pile of flattened straw on the floor tucked into a corner where the wind doesn't bite so sharply. The mattress is stuffed with dried grass and covered with a coarse blanket that's been patched and stitched more times than you can count. And of course, you're not alone. There's no such thing as a private bedroom, not unless you're royalty, and even then, you're sharing it with servants, footmen, and the odd dog. For everyone else, the concept of sleeping alone is laughable. Families sleep together, parents, siblings, cousins, babies, and often animals. It's a necessity, for warmth, for security, for the sheer lack of space. When winter howls outside and the fire burns out, it's body heat or hypothermia. You curl into your spot, careful not to wake the person next to you. On your left, your younger brother mumbles in his sleep, probably dreaming about barley cakes. On your right, your mother exhales in slow, wheezy puffs that somehow match the crackle of the dying fire. Somewhere near your feet, a dog shifts and snorts. The chicken, because of course there's a chicken, flutters faintly as it repositions itself beneath the bench. You lie back, eyes open, listening to it all. This is the music of a medieval night. Not silence, never silence, but a slow, uneven hum of shared survival. Now, in this moment, the day peels off you like old bark. You've worked from sunup to sundown, bent over fields, stoking fires, lifting buckets, chasing goats, or just enduring. Your bones hum with the effort of simply existing. And yet, you're alert. Because rest doesn't come easily in this world. The air inside the house is warm but thick. heavy with smoke from the hearth and the scent of damp wool, unwashed bodies, and cooked onions. You've long since stopped noticing, except when you leave and come back in. Then it hits you like a wet blanket soaked in stew. But now, it's home. Before you fall asleep, there's a small window of time, not just for closing your eyes, but for letting your mind unspool. This is when memories visit. You think about your neighbour's cart breaking, the strange man who passed through town last week, speaking a dialect no one understood, the girl at market who gave you a longer glance than usual, that ache in your shoulder that hasn't gone away, the faint rumour that someone in the next village coughed blood yesterday. And always, underneath it all, a quiet buzz of fear. Because the dark in medieval times isn't just the absence of light, it's the presence of everything else. Spirits, curses, wolves, the devil, the unknown. You were raised with stories, some told by firelight, others muttered in hushed tones when someone vanished without explanation. So you say a quick prayer under your breath. Even if you're not especially devout, you don't risk sleep without a little divine insurance. You ask for safety, for warmth, for your sister's cough to go away, for the cow to make it through the winter. You ask not to dream of the dead. Because dreams here are not entertainment. They're warnings, messages, signs. You've had them before, the ones where your teeth fall out, where the river runs red, where you see someone who's already passed calling you to follow them. Everyone's had those dreams. You just hope tonight isn't one of those nights. You shift under your blanket, scratchy wool that smells faintly of smoke in the last 2 seasons, and pull it tighter. You're still in your day clothes. You always sleep in them. Taking them off would be foolish. What if you have to get up suddenly? What if there's a fire? What if the roof caves in again? It did once, 2 winters ago. You close your eyes, try to drift, but you're not quite there. You scratch your leg. Something nibbles back. A flea. Or maybe the louse you thought you got rid of yesterday. You sigh. And then, as if summoned by your breath, the house begins to breathe with you. Not the people, but the wood. It creaks, settles, moans faintly in the wind. You hear something scuttle in the corner. A mouse, probably. Hopefully. You turn over. The fire gives a last pop. Someone snores. A child whimpers. And slowly, piece by piece, your senses begin to dull. Sleep comes in layers. Shallow at first. Your body floats. You think you're still awake. Then deeper. Dreams begin. Shapes blur. Words melt. You think you hear someone whispering your name. But it's just your mind folding in on itself like bread dough. This is first sleep. A strange concept to modern ears, but here it's expected. You'll sleep for 4 hours or so, then wake in the middle of the night for what's called the watch. During this time, some people tend the fire. Others pray, think, whisper, even visit neighbours. It's a quiet hour, the most honest part of the day. But for now, the first sleep begins. Your body finally lets go. Your muscles give in, the lice settle, the dog sighs. The house seems to hold its breath with you. And for a little while, in the heart of the medieval night, there is peace. Real, earned peace. Until the second half of life begins again, just before dawn. The fire has nearly faded now, its flames surrendered to the hush of the night, leaving only the soft glow of a few tired embers clinging to life in the hearth. The room is thick with shadows, the kind that stretch long and deep in the corners, creeping quietly beneath stools and baskets, where the last flickers of warmth can't reach. You're not quite awake, but not fully asleep either. You drift upward through layers of stillness, led by some ancient rhythm your body has always known. The hour has arrived. This, in the medieval world, is known as the watch, that peculiar, quiet interlude between first sleep and second sleep, a time when bodies stir, thoughts wander, and the veil between waking and dreaming thins to a whisper. It's not strange to wake at this hour. It's expected, normal, and oddly comforting. You're not alone in this. Your eyes blink open. The room is cloaked in half dark, lit only by the soft pulse of the coals in the fireplace. You don't need to see to know who sleeps where. To your left, you hear the soft breathing of your younger brother, curled under a patched wool blanket, one bare foot poking out into the chill. To your right, your mother shifts slightly in her sleep, letting out a quiet sigh. Somewhere near the door, the family dog thumps its tail against the floor, still dreaming, probably of something it can chase. You sit up slowly, careful not to rustle the straw too much. The air is cold, sharper than it was before you first drifted off. You pull your cloak around your shoulders, feeling its coarse wool rasp against your neck, still warm in the spots where it had trapped your body heat. The rest of it, though, is cold, damp even. You rub your arms and rise barefoot, stepping quietly across the packed dirt floor toward the hearth. This hour between sleeps is sacred in its stillness. There's no loud talking, no sudden movements, no clanging of pots. It's a time for hushed voices and thoughtful silences, a time for quiet prayers, stitching torn seams, nursing a baby, tending to the last coals before they die entirely. The house breathes with you, slow and rhythmic. You crouch before the hearth, nudging a small stick into the embers. One coal glows brighter, then fades. You consider adding another log, but firewood is precious, especially now, with winter threatening from the edges of every breath. Instead, you stir the ashes gently, enough to coax a faint heat back into the room. This quiet hour isn't wasted. People use it. They mend clothes, like the tunic folded beside you now, still slightly damp from its half-hearted washing the day before. You pick it up and run your fingers along the hem, tracing the frayed edge where the stitching has come loose again. You reach into the pocket of your cloak, fishing out the needle and thread you tucked there earlier, and begin to work. The task is simple: pull, loop, pierce, tug. But it's oddly satisfying. Your stitches aren't perfect, not like your grandmother's were. But they'll hold. That's what matters. You work slowly, letting your thoughts wander. You think of your grandmother often. She used to tell you that dreams during the watch were closer to the truth than any vision you'd have by day. That the soul wandered freely in this hour, and what it found could be either a warning or a blessing. She'd whisper about her own dreams, of owls with human eyes, of staircases that led nowhere, of seeing her sister long after she died. You believed her. Still do. Your sister shifts in her sleep behind you. She mumbles something, and then stills. You pause your stitching and glance over your shoulder, waiting. But nothing else stirs, just a breath, a sigh, and the sound of the wind curling along the roof's edge, tugging at the thatch with patient fingers. This is the time when stories are whispered. Lovers sneak across the lanes in the dark, guided by memory and moonlight. Midwives rise to check on pregnant women. Farmers check the sky through slitted shutters, searching for signs in the stars. Some kneel at bedside altars, praying softly for protection, for healing, for warmth. Others stare at the ceiling, listening for sounds no one else can hear. There are no clocks in your home, but your body knows this hour as well as it knows hunger. You don't need bells or chimes. Your ancestors lived this rhythm for generations, long before the ticking of machines took over time. They woke, they watched, they worked a little, thought a little, loved a little, then they slept again. Some historians argue whether this segmented sleep was a response to poor living conditions or simply the natural pattern of human rest in a pre-industrial world. Whatever the reason, it made sense. Without artificial light to extend the day, people rose with the sun and went to bed shortly after dusk. But 8 hours of solid sleep wasn't the norm, it was split. First sleep the watch, then second sleep. You sigh quietly and thread the needle again, finishing the seam. The tunic will do for a few more days, maybe longer if you don't snag it on the hedge again. You fold it and place it near your sleeping spot, careful not to block the warmth of the fire entirely. Next, you stretch your legs. Carefully, slowly. Your knees creak. Your fingers ache from the cold, the stitching, the endless carrying of firewood and buckets and tools that define your life. There's no cure for the ache, only sleep and repetition. tomorrow, you'll do it all again. You walk to the wooden door of your home and push it open gently, just wide enough to peer outside. The night is still. The sky above is so clear, so full of stars, you forget for a moment that your feet are freezing. The moon is a pale crescent, watching silently from high above. The air is sharp. You take one deep breath, filling your lungs with cold and starlight. In the distance, a dog barks, then another, then silence again. You close the door. Your thoughts are softer now, rounder, like stones worn smooth by the river. You wonder about the baker's boy who smiled at you last week. You wonder if the old healer knows how to stop your uncle's cough. You wonder if spring will come early this year. If your father's back will let him plough the fields. If the baby born 2 houses down will survive its first winter. There's a chill behind every question, but there's hope too. You return to your straw-filled corner where your blanket waits. You lower yourself carefully, wrapping the cloak tighter around your shoulders. The straw crackles beneath you. You hear a tiny rustle near your foot, probably a mouse seeking warmth. You let it be. The fire sighs behind you. One last pop of sap, then stillness. You lay back and close your eyes. Your heartbeat slows. The thoughts thin out, unraveling like old thread. Your limbs grow heavy. The straw pokes at your back, but you don't mind. You've learned to sleep in the discomfort. It's familiar, like the weight of the blanket, like the faint smell of smoke and wool that lingers in every thread of your life. And just like that, second sleep takes you. Deeper than the first. No dreams this time. Only the long, dark silence of a body that has done all it can do today. You sleep as the house sleeps, as the village sleeps, as the world sleeps. And somewhere outside, beneath the watchful eye of the stars, the wind carries your breath away, like a lullaby no one hears, but everyone knows. Dawn doesn't arrive with ceremony. There are no trumpets, no radiant sunbeams parting clouds in a triumphant blaze. It begins quietly, with the faintest shift in the air, a soft greying at the edges of the shutters, a coldness that no longer bites but lingers like a question. Are you ready? You stir beneath your blanket. Second sleep never feels long enough, especially after the watch. But the world does not wait. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster clears its throat like an old man about to complain. You groan softly and stretch, your back making a sound reminiscent of an old barn door. The fire has long gone out. The hearth is cold ash and silence. Around you, the house breathes itself awake. Your brother coughs. Someone farts. The dog shakes his ears with a flap, 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 scattering fleas into a fresh day of bouncing and biting. Your mother rises, always first, wrapping a shawl over her head and moving toward the hearth like it's a sacred duty. It is, in a way. No fire means no warmth, no food, no comfort. She begins stirring yesterday's ashes, coaxing life from the crumbs of yesterday's flame. You sit up slowly, blinking at the dusty shafts of light beginning to pierce the shutter slats. You stretch again, this time rolling your shoulders, legs stiff with sleep and straw. One sock is missing. You don't bother looking for it. Waking up in medieval times isn't about easing into the day. There's no coffee, no Instagram scroll, no hot shower. There's cold, hunger, responsibility. You rub your eyes and reach for the tunic you mended during the watch. The thread held. A small win. You pull it on and fasten your belt, cinching the coarse wool around your middle. It itches. Everything itches. Next comes the ritual of boots. They're stiff, cracked. The left one is damp, possibly from yesterday's puddle, possibly from something worse. You pull them on anyway. They groan like you do. Someone has begun slicing the bread, what's left of yesterday's loaf. It's dry, nearly stone-like. You scrape it with a knife to remove the greenish spots. If you toast it over the fire, the mould dies. That's what your grandmother says. You've decided to believe her. You take a piece and chew slowly. Bread in this era is not soft, fluffy or forgiving. It's dense, heavy, grainy. Sometimes it has pebbles in it, literal ones, from poorly milled flour. Everyone's teeth are chipped. You chew carefully, not because you savour the flavour, but because dental care involves pliers and prayer. Water is drawn next. The bucket clanks against the well wall, and the rope squeaks with effort. It's your job this morning, so you head outside. The air is sharp and damp. Mist clings low to the ground. The grass is slick with dew, and your breath comes out in pale little clouds. The well sits in the centre of the village, surrounded by muddy footprints and the occasional dropped turnip. You lower the bucket, counting in your head. 1, 2, 3, splash. You draw it up, arms straining. The weight is familiar, heavy but expected, like everything in this life. Back inside, the house smells like smoke and onions. Your mother is feeding the fire now, and a pot hangs from the hook above the hearth. Pottage, again. You don't ask what's in it. You never ask. Sometimes it's better that way. You pour water into the basin, splash your face and shiver. The cold bites. You scrub at your cheeks with the edge of your sleeve. There's no soap today, so the best you can do is remove the top layer of grime. Maybe. Cleanliness is a slippery concept here. You try. You really do. But you know that your hands will be blackened again by mid-morning. Your knees will be dusty. Your fingernails, hopeless. It's just how the world works. Clean is fleeting. Dirt is patient. You eat your portion of pottage in silence, blowing on the steaming surface to cool it. It's thick, a little sour. A hint of carrot? Maybe. Something chewy, hopefully not rat. You try not to think about it. After breakfast, the real day begins. Animals need feeding. Wood needs chopping. Your brother has already taken a basket to collect eggs from the coop. He comes back with 2 and a peck on his hand. The hens are mean this time of year. Your first task is to help with the firewood. You step outside again, this time carrying the dull hatchet. The woodpile is low. Too low. Your father said so last night. He worries the wind will shift and bring snow early. You need to double your stock. Chopping wood is rhythmic, brutal, honest. You place the log on the stump, raise the hatchet, bring it down. The log splits, sometimes. Other times it laughs and tips over, daring you to try again. You do, again and again. By the time you've split enough for the day, your arms ache and your breath puffs steadily in the cool morning air. You wipe your forehead with the back of your hand. Soot smudges your brow. You don't bother removing it. Inside, your little sister is singing. Just a simple tune, something she heard from the merchant's daughter last week. You smile a little. The smallest pleasures shine brighter in a world so rough. Once the fire is well fed and the animals tended, you help repair the fence near the garden. The wind knocked it over last night and the goats are eyeing the cabbage with malicious intent. You dig post holes, reset the slats, lash them with twine. Your hands are bleeding now, just a little. A splinter here, a scrape there. You flex your fingers. They still work. That's all that matters. By mid-morning, the sun has risen enough to cut through the fog. The village stirs in full now. Blacksmith hammering at the forge, the mill wheel creaking to life, someone yelling about a runaway pig. And amid it all, you stop for a moment and look around. There is noise, there is labour, there is mess, but also life. You're alive, whole, fed, dressed, mended. And for now, that's enough. You lean against the newly repaired fence for a moment, catching your breath. The sun is higher now, casting a pale light that glints off the wet leaves and the mud-slicked paths between cottages. You stretch your arms, wincing slightly as your shoulder pops. Around you, the village is fully awake. Chickens dart across the lane. A cart creaks by, pulled by a donkey with a limp. Children are chasing each other with sticks and screaming like banshees. Your day is far from over. You're sent next to gather herbs. Your mother hands you a list. Not written, of course, but recited carefully. You repeat it back like a sacred chant. Yarrow, plantain, sage, maybe some dandelion root if it hasn't been picked over already. You nod, grab your gathering sack and head toward the forest edge. The forest is both familiar and dangerous. You've been warned about it since you could walk. Wolves live here. Witches too, depending on who you ask. And occasionally much worse things, the kind that appear in stories only whispered during storms. But right now, in the morning light, it's quiet. The trees drip with dew. The earth smells rich, dark, alive. You step carefully, boots squelching in the underbrush. Birds call overhead, sharp and sudden. A rabbit darts across your path and vanishes. You start with the yarrow, tall, feathery leaves, clustered flowers. Good for wounds. You crouch and cut carefully with your small blade, placing the stems gently in your sack. Then comes plantain, hugging the ground in wide, flat leaves. You find it by a rock, half hidden by moss. Herbal knowledge in your world isn't just nice to have, it's survival. There are no pharmacies, no urgent care. Your healer is a wrinkled woman with clouded eyes, and a basket that always smells like vinegar and thyme. She once saved your uncle from a festering wound with nothing but a poultice of honey, cobwebs, and prayer. You don't know if the prayer helped. Sage is trickier to find, but you spot a patch near the stream, already blooming. You kneel beside it, pluck the leaves carefully. As you do, your reflection wavers in the water. Pale face, smudged brow, wind-blown hair. You barely recognize yourself sometimes. The forest feels like a mirror. You think, as you often do when alone, about what lies beyond this place. You've never travelled more than a day from home, never seen the sea, never seen a town big enough to have stone buildings or a market that sells things like figs or foreign spices. You dream of it sometimes, of cities made of towers, of people who speak strange languages, of streets lit with torches that never burn out. But you also know such places come with danger, with crowds and disease and lords who don't care if you live or die. Here at least you are known. Even if life is hard, it's predictable. You finish collecting and begin the walk back. The sack is fragrant now, earthy, bitter, green. You pass the shrine on the road's edge and pause. It's a simple thing, just a stone niche with a carving of a saint, long worn by rain and lichen. You press your fingers together and whisper a quick thanks, for the herbs, for the silence, for not stepping in something unspeakable. When you return, your mother is at the table, grinding something in a wooden mortar. She nods as you empty the herbs into her waiting bowl. She doesn't say much, just good, and continues her work. That's enough. Approval comes quiet in this house. Now, your father calls for you again. Time to help him mend the roof. You groan a little, not from disobedience, but from the sheer exhaustion of another task. Still, you nod and follow him outside. The ladder is rickety, held together with faith and rope. You climb slowly, the wind biting harder the higher you go. The roof is a patchwork of thatch, moss, and old boards. He points out the section to fix. You kneel, trying not to let your knees slide on the damp reeds, and begin weaving new thatch into the holes. Thatched roofs need constant care. Rain and wind tear them apart bit by bit, and if one part fails, the water gets in. And once water's inside, everything else goes wrong. Mould, rot, cold. You've seen a house collapse because of a leaky roof. That memory stays with you. You work carefully. Your father says little, just gestures, nods. You work side by side in silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because the work doesn't need words. A shared task is a language of its own. Afterward you climb down, your arms scratched and your back aching. He claps you on the shoulder once, a brief, rough sign of appreciation. You feel it for hours. Lunch is plain, some porridge from barley, reheated and thinned with water. You eat sitting on the step, bowl in your lap, watching as a neighbour tries to lead an obstinate cow through the gate. The cow wins. There's no real pause in your day. Once your bowl is empty, there's laundry to bring in, a tool to fix, a hen to chase. Always something. The rhythm is relentless, but familiar. It holds you. Still, now and then, you slip away. Just for a minute. Just to breathe. You wander behind the house to where the trees begin again. There's a spot you like. A flat stone beneath an old oak, just far enough from everything to feel like its own world. You sit there now, sack still slung over your shoulder, back leaning against the bark. You close your eyes, and in that moment, you don't think about work or chores or how you'll have to wash your only tunic again soon. You just breathe, deep and slow. The wind shifts. You smell time, smoke, damp soil, and something else, something like peace. It won't last. It never does. But for now, it's yours. But peace is a fickle thing in medieval life. Before long, the voices find you. Your brother shouting your name from the other side of the hedge, the clatter of hooves on the path, the creak of a cart being pulled through the village mud. You open your eyes, give the oak tree a parting glance, and rise from the stone. You brush stray leaves from your tunic and head back toward the sound of duty. This time, it's the village oven. Today is one of the few days it's hot. Really hot. Because several households are sharing the fire to bake. Fuel is expensive and firewood isn't infinite. So the villagers learn to coordinate. A dance of timing and temperature passed down through countless generations. Baking day is both chore and ritual. You carry the kneaded dough wrapped in a cloth, the surface already dusted with flour. Your mother handed it to you with a nod. No words. She trusts you now. Or at least, she trusts the loaf, and that's something. The oven is communal, set into a thick stone wall near the market square. It's large enough to hold dozens of loaves, and it's already blazing, smoke rising in a gentle ribbon into the cold air. A woman you know, Magda, the cooper's wife, is minding the fire today. Her apron is smeared with soot, and her hair's tucked into a cloth stained with flour. She eyes your dough and gestures to an open spot on the warming board. You place the dough carefully, then step back. This is a waiting game. You'll be here for hours, helping turn loaves, adding kindling, wiping soot off scorched bottoms. You won't get paid. You don't need to. Everyone helps on baking day because everyone eats. While the bread bakes, you sit nearby with a few others. You all talk in that slow, lulling cadence of people who know they'll be here a while. One girl tells a story she heard from a traveller, of a city where houses are stacked 10 stories high and boats sail under stone bridges shaped like lions. Someone else scoffs, but no one interrupts. Stories are currency here. No one spends them carelessly. You take turns peeking into the oven. The loaves rise, their crusts cracking, the smell rich and heady. The fire has burned down just enough to heat the stones, and the bread begins to brown. You breathe in deeply. There are moments in life that feel larger than they should be. Moments where the air tastes different, where you feel the weight of your ancestors resting gently on your shoulders, watching. Moments where survival isn't just about toil and rot and tax collectors, but about bread and warmth, and people sitting beside you sharing the waiting. Eventually your loaf is ready. Magda lifts it with a wooden paddle and knocks the bottom, a hollow sound. Perfect. She hands it to you with a nod and a grunt. You nod back. You carry it home carefully, like a relic. The crust is golden, blistered in spots, and the smell is like a song you've heard since you were small. At home your mother tears a corner off the loaf and tastes it. She chews. Then, one brief smile. No words. You beam. It's the only praise you'll need today. The loaf is set aside for supper. Not all of it, of course. Part will be saved for tomorrow. Part will go to your uncle down the lane, who's too sick to bake. A small bit will be used to thicken soup. None of it will be wasted. Not a crumb. As the day moves on, the sky begins to change. The light softens. Shadows lengthen. You know this hour well. It's the turning point. Not evening yet, but no longer afternoon. The animals seem to sense it too. Chickens begin returning to their roosts. The goats huddle closer to the barn. The pigs start snorting expectantly near their feeding troughs. Your job now is to help fetch water again. The same path, the same bucket, the same rhythm. Lower, splash, haul, walk. This time, you go with your brother. He's still small, but he insists on helping. You let him carry the half-full bucket. He tries to pretend it's light. You pretend not to notice his wobble. On the way back, you both pause near the blackberry thicket. It's mostly bare now, but you find one, just one, still clinging to a branch. You pick it and split it. Half for him, half for you. Tart, cold, perfect. Back home, the evening fire is already burning. Your mother is stirring the pot. Tonight's supper smells of leeks, garlic and barley. The good bread is set out, sliced carefully, one piece per person. The dog circles the bench, hopeful. He gets a crust. You eat slowly, not to savour, but to stretch. No one talks much during supper. Words are for earlier in the day. Now it's about warmth, about chewing, about preparing the body for another night of rest. Afterward, bowls are wiped out, spoons rinsed, and hands washed, sort of. You splash cold water on your fingers and dry them on your tunic. Good enough. Then comes the soft part of the day, the part where the world quiets itself. You sit by the fire and mend another sock. Your father sharpens a blade. Your sister braids her hair. Your mother hums. And the baby somehow is asleep without crying. Outside, the stars begin to appear, one by one, like shy singers before a song. You lie down on your straw mat, curl up beneath your cloak and stare at the ceiling beams. The fire flickers one last time. The dog sighs. The wind outside rattles a shutter, then quiets again. You let your eyes drift closed, and already you feel it. The weight of the day lifting, the hush of night curling around your limbs like wool. You've earned this. Every scratch on your hands, every ache in your shoulders, every grain of dirt in your boots. They brought you here, to this warmth, this quiet, this breath. And soon, first sleep will come again. Evening has softened into night now, not with a dramatic fall of darkness, but with a slow fade, as if the whole world has decided to speak in whispers. The stars are out, scattered like pale breadcrumbs across the sky, and the moon is a gentle curve, almost smiling. You lie back in your straw bed, cloak wrapped around your shoulders, arms tucked close to your chest, watching the shadow of the rafters stretch across the ceiling beams. Everyone else has settled. The fire has dwindled to a faint glow, and the occasional pop from a burning knot is the only sound besides breathing. You're tired, truly, deeply tired, but sleep still lingers just out of reach, teasing you. You've entered that strange space between exhaustion and rest, where the body slows but the mind refuses to follow. Thoughts come and go in uneven rhythms. You shift slightly, trying to find the least scratchy patch of straw beneath you. It doesn't help. You sigh through your nose and close your eyes again. It's in moments like this, these half-sleeps, these suspended nights, that everything feels strangely vivid. Your thoughts roam wider than they ever do during the day. You remember things you hadn't thought about in years. Like the first time you saw snow, you were small, and it felt like the sky was falling in soft silence. Or the first time you lost a tooth and were told to throw it on the roof and wish for a stronger one. And then the itch begins, behind your ear, then on your ankle, then, maddeningly, on the back of your knee. You scratch, hard enough to feel the skin rise under your nails, but you know it won't help. Lice, again. Always lice. They're like uninvited roommates, living on your body, biting without apology, multiplying without shame. You've tried everything. Vinegar baths, goose fat, picking them off one by one with a bone comb under the sun. Still they come back, riding in your seams, your blankets, your hair. Sometimes you think they're smarter than you. You shift again, pulling the cloak tighter, as if it might guard you from creatures that live in your very clothes. Your mother says everyone has them, even the priest, even the Lord probably, beneath all that velvet and embroidery. You like that image of a noble dressed in gold thread and lace, scratching furiously behind his powdered ear. It almost makes the itching bearable. Almost. Historians still argue whether medieval people were truly bothered by lice, or if they simply accepted them the way we accept weather. After all, when every soul you know is itchy, what's the point of complaint? But in the quiet of night, when there's nothing else to think about, the crawling becomes louder than thoughts. You reach again to your scalp, pinch, rub, flick. You feel something squish between your nails. You try not to think about it. You definitely don't look. Eventually your mind drifts again, this time toward the roof. Not metaphorically. You're literally thinking about the roof. It leaked last week during the rain. Just a little. A drip right above where your sister sleeps. You patched it today with new thatch, but the forecast, such as it is, was ominous. A wet wind, the old healer called it. Whatever that means, you wonder if you pack the straw tight enough. If not, you'll all wake up to a soggy pillow. And then, of course, there's the sound. A scratch. Not in your hair. In the wall. You open your eyes. Pause. There it is again. Scratch. Scratch. Pause. You don't need to guess. It's a rat. Or two. They live in the walls, in the thatch, in the places you pretend are empty. You've seen them scurry past your feet in the dark, felt them brush your ankle beneath the table. Last spring one chewed through your shoe. You still wear it, patched with twine and hope. You whisper a curse and turn over. You know they won't come close while you're awake. They wait. Clever little things, smarter than chickens, braver than goats, more persistent than taxes. You stare at the ceiling again. The beam above you has a crack in it, shaped like a tree branch. You've stared at it so many nights it's become a kind of companion. In winter, you imagine it as a river. In summer, a lightning bolt. Tonight it looks like a bird in flight. Your eyes follow its jagged path until they drift closed again. You almost sleep. But the goat sneezes. Yes, the goat is inside tonight. You forgot that. When the cold bites harder, the animals come in. Goats, chickens, even the smaller sheep if they're young enough to need the warmth. It's not unusual, it's practical. You grow up learning how to sleep through bleats, snorts, and the occasional hooves on floor moment. Sometimes in your dreams you're back in the barn, and it's impossible to tell the difference. You shift again. Your little brother has stolen most of the blanket. You tug it back gently, trying not to wake him. He groans and turns over. The blanket gives way. You sigh. There's a kind of music to these nights, not one you dance to, but a rhythm all the same. Creaks from the timber, the slow puff of breath from a dozen mouths, the rustle of straw, a whisper of wind at the shutter. A world built from old wood and weary lungs. Sometimes during the watch, your grandmother would tell you that angels walked among sleepers, that if you lay still and listened long enough, you might hear them passing by. But you'd have to be quiet. So quiet you could hear your own heartbeat. You listen now, not for angels, but for stillness. It's there, under the lice, under the rats, under the memory of too thin shoes and leaky roofs. Under it all, the night settles into you like soil around seed. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel safe. Not clean, not full, not warm, but safe. And in this world that is no small thing, you curl tighter into the blanket. Your cheek presses into the sackcloth, your breath evens out. And finally the long descent begins into that second sleep, slow and deep. The kind you don't remember in the morning, but the kind that holds you just the same. Morning doesn't crash into your world like thunder. It seeps in, quietly, gently, like a shy visitor knocking at the shutters. It begins with a shift in the air, a slightly lighter grey peeking in through the oiled cloth covering the small window, and the way the corners of the room aren't quite as dark anymore. No birds yet, no rooster, no human voices, just the subtle sense that something is turning. That night is stepping back. You stir in your bedding, stiff from sleep. your cloak half kicked off during the night. The straw underneath you has flattened where your weight pressed into it, and one particularly sharp piece has embedded itself into your shoulder blade. You groan softly and sit up, brushing bits of husk from your face. The room is still quiet, still cold, still filled with the soft sounds of a family in the slow process of waking. A stretch here, a cough there, a faint fart from someone who will later deny it. You rub your eyes with the heels of your hands, then blink into the dusky space. The hearth has cooled completely, but your mother's already up. She always is. She moves in near silence, coaxing life back into the fire like she's cradling a stubborn child. She doesn't need help, not yet. But you watch her hands move automatically through the motions, breaking kindling, laying the fire, blowing gently at the embers, her face close to the hearth, her breath clouding in the chilly air. The rest of the house is slow to rise. Your brother is snoring softly next to you, arm flung across his face. The goat, still indoors from last night's frost, is awake and chewing on something that may or may not be your other sock. You sigh. Just another day in the strange, crowded chaos of medieval family living. You swing your legs around and step into your boots. They're stiff, cold, and slightly damp. Whether that's due to morning dew or goat interference, you don't want to know. You wiggle your toes to get the blood flowing, then shrug your cloak back around your shoulders and shuffle over to the wash basin. Washing, of course, is a generous term. The water in the basin is icy, left out overnight. You dip your hands in anyway, because that's just what you do, and splash your face with a grimace. The shock of it hits you like a slap. You wipe your cheeks on your sleeve, not bothering to check how clean that is, then spit into the straw near the threshold. Clean enough. Your next job is emptying the night pot. Truly, no part of medieval hygiene prepares you for the dignity-erasing routine of tiptoeing through your sleeping relatives with a sloshing clay vessel of human waste. You lift it carefully, not daring to breathe through your nose, and carry it through the door, your steps deliberate, your expression grim. Outside, the air is cold and crisp, with a thin mist curled along the ground like sleeping fog. The village is still mostly asleep, chimneys not yet smoking, windows still shuttered. You walk past the compost pit and pour the contents in with practiced aim. It steams faintly in the cold. You shake out the pot, give it a quick rinse from the water barrel nearby, and carry it back. It's strange, you think, how normal this has become. You don't flinch anymore, you don't complain, you just do it, like everyone else. Because that's the reality here. Cleanliness is not about sparkling porcelain or lavender-scented towels. It's about not being the one who lets the house smell worse than usual. Back inside, your mother is ladling out breakfast. Thin barley porridge with a hint of something sweet, probably the last of the dried apples. A luxury. She hands you a bowl without a word. You nod, sit, and eat with slow spoonfuls. The warmth is welcome, even if the texture is more glue than gruel. Your father joins you, grumbling about his back. He says the thatch above your heads will need patching again before the next rain. You already know this. You heard it dripping last week. You tell him you'll check it after chores. He nods. That's all the conversation you'll get this early. After eating, you set your bowl aside and rise. Your mother hands you a small bundle. Today's laundry. Just a few tunics and a pair of hose, but even that will take time. You gather them and carry them outside to the washing tub. It sits near the back of the house, a wide wooden basin beside a flat rock where you scrub. You fill the tub with cold water from the barrel. Your hands ache as soon as they touch it. You scrub anyway. The soap is made from lye and old fat. It smells sharp and harsh, but it does the job. You press the fabric against the rock, grinding the dirt and sweat from the cloth, your knuckles red and raw within minutes. Laundry, in your world, isn't just labour. It's pain. Pain in your fingers, in your back, in your knees from kneeling on uneven earth. But it's also pride. A clean tunic means you're trying, that you haven't given in to filth and rot and decay, that you're still standing, still caring, still living. You hang the clothes on the hedge to dry, careful to pin them with twine so the wind doesn't steal them. The breeze carries a mix of scents: damp grass, chimney smoke, and the faint sweetness of herbs from your mother's drying bundles. Your next task is water. Again. The well sits in the centre of the village. You hoist the bucket, lower it with the creaking rope, hear it splash below. You draw it up, water sloshing, arms burning with effort. You fill your smaller pail and begin the walk back, shoulders tilted to balance the weight. You've done this so many times, your body moves before you think. By the time you return, the sun has risen fully. The village is alive now. Children run barefoot across the path. A man shouts after a cow that refuses to stay inside the fence. Someone's baking, and the scent of browning bread makes your stomach rumble again. Your little brother calls to you from behind the barn. He's found a nest of eggs. You follow him and help gather them. Warm and smooth in your hands, one of the hens pecks at your fingers. You curse softly, then laugh. Later, you'll help with firewood, then patch the roof, then stir the stew. There's no end to the work. But there's something else too. There's rhythm, there's routine. There's a strange kind of peace in knowing exactly what needs to be done and exactly how to do it. You finish hanging the last piece of laundry, wipe your hands on your tunic, and glance up at the sky. It's blue today. Not entirely, but enough. And somehow that feels like a blessing. Blue skies are not something you take for granted. Not here, not now. You stare up for a moment, letting the morning sun warm your cheeks, the dampness on your hands already beginning to sting and dry. It's going to be a good drying day. Your mother will be pleased. That means the laundry will crisp up quickly on the hedge line, and you won't have to haul it back in half wet, smelling of wood smoke and disappointment. You take a moment longer, just breathing in the rare clarity of the air. There's a faint scent of earth, ash, and bread in the wind. You close your eyes. For once, even the goat has stopped making its opinion known. You stand there, your feet caked in yesterday's mud, your tunic stiff from repeated mending, and feel, for the briefest flicker, a kind of lightness. Then your brother throws a turnip at your head. It misses, of course. He's 6. His aim is abysmal. But the spell breaks, and the real world returns in all its noisy, scrappy familiarity. You turn with an exaggerated scowl and chase him around the yard, both of you laughing now, breath fogging in the cold. He yells something about you smelling like boiled socks. You yell back something about his teeth looking like fence posts. Classic sibling diplomacy. The moment doesn't last because there's always something else to do. Today that something is soap. Not the using of it, though heaven knows that's needed, but the making of it. It's your turn to help the herbalist boil down the lye and fat. It's an awful process. The smell is horrifying, the work is slow, and if you're not careful, it'll burn your skin raw. But someone has to do it. Cleanliness, as it turns out, is a grim and smelly business. You walk through the village to the herbalist's hut, passing neighbours along the way. You nod. They nod. No one exchanges words unless they must. That's not rudeness. That's efficiency. Talking is for markets, for firelight, for celebrations. Not for the path to the lye pot. At the hut, the old woman greets you with a wave of her ladle, already up to her elbows in a slurry of fat and ash. She looks like a creature from a nightmare. Soot on her face, apron burned in spots, hair tied up in a cloth that's probably older than your parents' marriage. "You're late," she says, not unkindly. "I'm early," you reply, deadpan. "Then stir." You do. The mixture is thick and slippery and stinks like someone tried to cook a boot with garlic and despair. It bubbles ominously, and you have to stir constantly, clockwise, or it clumps. The old woman talks as she works, mostly to herself. She mutters about ratios and recipes, about which neighbour skimps on ash and who adds water too early. You listen, half amused, half terrified. Soap making is an alchemy of patience and punishment. First comes the rendered animal fat collected from kitchen scraps or butcher leftovers. Then the wood ash, leached with water to create a lye so caustic it'll strip the bark off a tree. Together, heated and stirred, they eventually thicken into something almost magical. Almost. You take turns with the stirring. Your arms ache, your nose rebels. At one point you swear the pot sighs at you. Eventually it begins to change texture. Slicker, heavier, more resistant. That's the sign it's almost ready. The old woman nods and scoops out a lump with her paddle, pressing it into a wooden mould. It'll sit there for days curing before it can be used. But already, you see the beginnings of transformation. From filth to cleanliness, from muck to something useful. It's a strange kind of beauty. Ugly, necessary, honest. She rewards you with a small piece from last week's batch, already hardened and sharp-smelling. It's not luxurious, it's not gentle, but it will scrub the worst of the barnyard from your skin, and that's more than enough. You thank her and leave, soap wrapped in cloth, the smell clinging to your hands no matter how far you hold it away from your face. Back home, your mother's already kneading dough. She doesn't look up, but she sniffs. "Soap day?" she asks. You grunt. "Good," she says. "You needed it." You drop the soap into the wooden bin by the hearth, then wash your hands in the basin again, more for show than effect. The herbal stink is immune to cold water. Lunch is a thin stew made from the bones of yesterday's chicken and whatever root vegetables were starting to soften. You eat it in silence, grateful that it's warm and that there's bread left to mop the bottom of the bowl. Then it's time to gather rushes. This task at least takes you to the river. Rushes are used for flooring, woven and spread out to cover the hard-packed dirt inside your house. They help with dampness, with sound, and, if you're lucky, with smell. But they need to be replaced often, especially in winter, when everything begins to rot faster than you can sweep it. You take a knife and a basket and head toward the marshy edge of the river. The sun is higher now, and your boots squelch with each step. The rushes grow in thick clusters, and you crouch to cut them low near the base, choosing the tall, dry stalks that won't mildew within the week. As you work, you hear birds overhead, ducks maybe, or geese. A frog plops into the water nearby. You pause, looking out at the slow-moving current. You've never gone more than 2 villages away. The river flows beyond both. Where it goes, you don't know. You wonder what it would be like to follow it, to walk alongside it until your feet find sand instead of mud, until you see a ship, or a city, or something that doesn't smell like wet straw and old shoes. But the thought doesn't last long. You cut more rushes, fill your basket, and trudge home. Boots heavier now, but not unpleasantly so. You lay the rushes out to dry in the sun, then sit on the step, wiping your forehead with your sleeve. The sky is still blue, miraculously. You lean back and let your eyes close just for a moment. The soap stink lingers. The rushes rustle in the breeze. Your knees are sore and still. Somehow. Everything is okay. You don't fully fall asleep on the step. Just drift, lulled by the warm patch of sun on your face and the scent of drying rushes carried on a breeze soft enough to hush the world. It's a rare moment of stillness, one that settles into your bones rather than passing by. Your limbs grow heavier the longer you stay there, as if the sunlight has weight. For once, the goat is quiet. The chickens are occupied pecking around the yard, and even the neighbours aren't yelling about pigs or missing firewood. You could almost believe the day has grown gentle. Almost. Because just as your eyes begin to close, you feel a tap, firm, deliberate, child-sized, on your shoulder. You open one eye to find your brother standing over you, holding what is unmistakably a dead rat by the tail. "I found it in the water barrel," he says. You stare at the rat, then at your brother, then at the rat again. "Why?" you ask slowly. "Did you bring it to me?" He shrugs. "For science?" You groan and wave him away before he decides to add demonstration to the presentation. He trots off, satisfied with your reaction, and you make a mental note to reboil every drop of water in the house. Again. You stand, stretching your back until it pops, and turn toward your next task. Muck. More precisely, mucking out the latrine trench behind the shed. Not glamorous, not pleasant, but necessary. Left too long, the pit fills, and when it fills, it doesn't warn you. It overflows, onto boots, into gardens, into your nightmares. Armed with a spade and a nose that has long since surrendered its protest, you get to work. The soil here is dark and damp, the stink sharp and earthy. You dig carefully, methodically, turning the waste and straw, redistributing it to a shallower trench where it can compost. This mixture, revolting as it is now, will be next spring's salvation. Your cabbages will thank you. Your nose, however, does not. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly understood sanitation, but standing here with a shovel full of rot and the full-body awareness of what happens when hygiene is neglected, you're pretty confident that no one in your village is under any illusions. They may not speak in germs and microbes, but they've learned through bitter experience that cleanliness, or something like it, is survival. When the pit is turned and covered again with a layer of straw, you scrape your boots against a flat rock, remove your gloves, and rinse your hands with water from a fresh bucket, thankfully one not tainted by your brother's rodent science project. Back inside, your mother is preparing the evening meal. The room smells of onions, boiled lentils, and something pungent, but vaguely appetizing that probably involves dried fish. You offer to help, and she nods toward the table where herbs are scattered, half chopped. You take up the knife and start slicing mint and garlic into fine ribbons. Your hands still smell of earth and ash, and the garlic does nothing to cover it, but the work is meditative. Dinner is eaten in familiar quiet. Your father mutters about the upcoming tax collection. Your mother calculates out loud how much barley you'll need to trade for new shoes. Your sister tells a story she heard in the market of a boy swallowed by a giant fish, only to be sneezed out 3 days later speaking in riddles. You laugh, half from the tale, half from exhaustion. After the bowls are wiped clean with crusts of stale bread and set aside, your father beckons you to the hearth. The family's store of rushlights needs replenishing, and it's your job tonight to prepare them. You take the bundles of dried rushes, peel their edges back to expose the pith, and dip each in melted tallow, letting the fat soak deep into the fibres before laying them out to cool. Rushlights don't burn bright, but they burn long. They're smoky, smelly and stubborn, but they keep the dark at bay. Just like everything else in your world, they're a little unpleasant and entirely essential. You set them carefully beside the hearth, arranging them so the newest ones are on top and ready for tomorrow. By now, the baby is asleep, snoring with the adorable intensity of someone who has never cleaned a latrine. Your brother is tracing something in the ash by the fireplace, a crude drawing of a dragon perhaps, or a cow with battle armour. You can't tell. You let him be. You step outside. The sun is low now, dipping behind the trees, throwing golden streaks across the fields and rooftops. The sky's a tapestry of warm gold, cool blue, and the first hints of night's indigo edge. You take it in, this final gift of the day, and breathe deep. The scent of the earth, the smoke, the sweat. It all mingles into something you almost dare call beautiful. You walk to the hedge where the laundry still hangs. Some of it is dry now, crisp and stiff in the wind. You gather it carefully, folding it over your arm. The tunic you washed earlier is cleaner than it's been in weeks. There's a quiet pride in that. Inside, you place the clothes in their place. You check the stew pot for tomorrow, throw another log onto the fire, and then settle near your blanket. Your muscles ache in that familiar way that tells you the day has been full. Your mind hums, not with worry, but with the low, steady rhythm of a life made by hand. Tomorrow will come with more muck, more soap, more goats, more everything. But tonight you are warm. You are fed. You are tired, but safe. You lie back, pull the cloak over your chest, and watch the fire crackle as the sky outside darkens fully. A new rushlight burns softly in the corner. The goat snorts. Your father mutters in his sleep. Your mother tucks the baby in closer, and you, with aching limbs and garlic-scented fingers, drift towards sleep, soothed not by silence, but by the comfort of continuity. The house has gone quiet again, not the kind of quiet that follows a loud noise, but the deeper kind, the kind that comes from a long, steady winding down. A stillness earned. Outside, the last light has disappeared from the sky, leaving nothing but soft indigo shadows that brush across the windows like velvet. The fire in the hearth is now more ember than flame, glowing faintly beneath a pile of slowly collapsing ash. And you, wrapped in your wool cloak, lie on your straw bed, body aching in familiar places but finally beginning to relax. This is the last stretch of the day. Not just in time, but in spirit. That sacred space between motion and rest. The part of your life that's invisible to history books but makes up more hours than anything else. You breathe in. The air tastes of soot and old bread. The walls creak as they settle. The baby, miraculously, has fallen asleep without a fuss, his tiny breaths so faint you only notice them when you stop thinking. Your mother lies with her back to the room, curled protectively around him, her braid peeking out from under the blanket. Your father is already snoring, softly, rhythmically, as if he's working even in sleep. You roll to your side and tug the blanket tighter. The goat is mercifully silent tonight, though she's curled in the corner near the hearth, still inside due to the lingering cold. One chicken flutters softly in her sleep, then settles. Your sister has claimed the warmer side of the mat again, her elbow pressed into your ribs. You nudge her gently, and she mumbles something unintelligible but shifts away. You'll take the win. Your thoughts drift, as they always do when your body is done but your mind isn't quite finished. You think about tomorrow, the tools that need mending, the garden fence that might not survive another windstorm, the herbs you forgot to tie in bundles today. You picture them drooping in the corner, limp from neglect. A small failure, but fixable. Then your mind goes further, beyond chores, beyond the village, beyond the goat-scented air you've known since birth. You wonder, for the 100th time, what life is like in a place with candles made from beeswax and not tallow, where streets are paved and straight, where people wear cloaks with lining and not just patches, where baths happen indoors, where water comes from walls instead of wells. It sounds absurd when you say it in your head, but you've heard the stories. Maybe they're true. Or maybe they're just what people dream of when they've spent too many winters with lice and firewood and freezing chamber pots. Still, the idea comforts you, even if it's a fantasy. You press your face into your arm and try to remember something beautiful. Not useful. Beautiful. The taste of honey. The sound of rain on the roof when you're already warm inside. The look on your mother's face the one time she actually laughed during supper. The day you chased a butterfly across the pasture and fell into a patch of clover that smelled better than anything you'd known. The way the stars looked 2 nights ago, so sharp and bright you could almost hear them singing. No one taught you how to collect these memories. You just started doing it. Maybe because you knew you'd need them. Now the room grows cooler. The rushlight in the corner gutters low. You hear the faint flap of it flickering, and then silence again. Even the wind outside seems to be holding its breath. You curl tighter under the blanket, every joint and muscle finally giving up the tension it's carried all day. Your hands, cracked, rough, permanently stained in the folds, rest gently against your chest. Your feet, calloused and stiff, now lie still beneath the blanket's weight. Your eyes, though still open, are no longer focused on anything. The world doesn't end in sleep. It simply steps back. It gives you space, and you take it. You let your breathing slow. You let your thoughts melt into shapes and colours you don't try to name. You think, very faintly, of soap, of straw, of goats, and then even those drift away. Sleep doesn't come with trumpets or sudden descent. It arrives like fog, like snow falling on rooftops no one remembers building. It blankets, it hushes, it takes its time, but it always comes. And so it does now. You fade, not away, but into warmth, into quiet, into the kind of rest only those who have worked with their hands, suffered with their feet, and carried their days on their shoulders can know. Tomorrow will come, and when it does, you'll rise. But for now, there is only stillness, and it is enough. So here you are again, wrapped in that rough old blanket, with your feet curled against the last trace of warmth near the hearth, and your body sinking into the shape it knows best. The day has done what it came to do, swept you up, pulled you through, and gently set you down again right here. There's no rush now, no lists, no tasks waiting in the corner, just the soft rhythm of breathing, your own and that of everyone sleeping around you. The fire crackles once more, then grows quiet. The rushlight flickers low, its flame lazy and golden. Outside, the wind hums a lullaby, in a language only the shutters seem to understand. It tugs at the thatch one last time, then glides onward, leaving the house still, peaceful, whole. The straw beneath you has stopped itching, or maybe you've stopped noticing. Either way, your body relaxes further, heavier, softer, a quiet weight that belongs exactly where it is. And your thoughts, those last little sparks of the day, begin to fade too, not in a rush, not all at once, just gently, like snow melting on stone. You're safe, you're still, and you've made it through another day. That in this world is everything. So let go now. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the hush of this old house hold you. Let sleep, slow and certain, wrap around you like the night itself. You're home, you're resting, and the world, for once, can wait. End of story. Sweet dreams.